The wheel of time turns and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Welcome to Dragonmount. I'm Kathy Campbell.
I'm Rajiv Moté.
And I'm Maureen Carr.
And we don't have a specific episode to talk about because we are going to talk about the whole season.
Woohoo!
Hooray!
Yeah, super excited.
Can you believe we live in a world where season 1 of the Wheel of Time now exists?
It's amazing. What a great world. Yes, fantastic.
I never thought it would
30 years
happen.
waiting for it. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And we just hit, kind of the finale of the history of the book coming out just recently. It feels strange, but we wanted to come and kind of talk about our thoughts on the season as a whole, kind of our hopes and dreams for the future, and just kind of finish up this season of how this show feels right now before we go off into our world of other worlds. So let's start. Very first question: have either of you had a chance to sit and rewatch the show?
No.
I have not rewatched it in its entirety. Work started hitting like a storm as soon as the New Year's weekend was over.
Well, at least it waited until that.
At least it waited until that. I do want to do that. I want to give it some time to settle. Probably go back to it and just kind of binge it and see what that experience is like.
It's so funny you say that, because that's kind of been my thought too. I'm still so close to it with the ball of stress and feels and emotions around everything. And so I also was thinking, okay, in the spring, like maybe early spring, so like kind of to get ready for JordanCon in April.
Yes.
Fingers crossed that all happens. Just kind of like, let me give my brain some space, and also let kind of the internet calm down a little bit too.
Good point.
I don't know about you all, but I could tell feelings are strong in the world. I want to point out specifically people that left very, very mean comments on posts for Rafe's birthday.
Aw.
So that's completely uncalled for. There's no reason for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely ridiculous. The number of people that we had to ban and the number of comments that we had to delete on a birthday post, it just makes me so angry. And so shame on you. Shame on you.
Yeah. So the charitable, and I'm saying extremely charitable interpretation here is obviously this is a property that inspires a lot of passion.
Ooh,
and I don't always love it the way it comes out. We need to remember kindness in our lives, both online and in person. We need to rescue that, and it starts at home. But yeah, I mean, I get that to a certain level, but then there's just being mean.
Yeah. And I think if you are attacking an individual person and giving them death threats because they quote unquote ruined your favorite book series, that's very sad.
And guess what? It's still there. The books are still there.
Yeah. The books. Yeah. And that's the part that nothing, the show was never going to be exactly what anybody wants at all, period. There's too many people involved. Even if you had a Gleeman that was producing the show, it's still going to be different than your emotions and thoughts around the books that you're reading.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times people forget how many people are making the decisions. I know Sarah Nakamura did a really good Facebook stories series on Instagram where she was talking about how she was just a consultant. Like she made suggestions and recommendations. The same with Rafe. Rafe is the showrunner. Nobody, not one person has the ability to put their foot down and say, we are going to do everything exactly this way.
Yeah, it's a collaboration.
Yeah.
And I know the same thing happened with Winter Dragon when that came out. the fandom just got so mad. I mean, to the point that it was
fair,
like death threats, but still,
but not
you
death
cannot
threats.
like it and issue death threats to the people involved. It's ridiculous that we need to get it to that level.
Maybe one of these days we will have a podcast episode about Winter's Dragon, because my hot takes were because for a little behind the scenes, before we had access to screeners, we were going to do a test episode for this podcast where we talked about Winter's Dragon, and not going to release it because it was just going to be a test to like, hey, here's how we're going to work together, all of that. Yeah. However,
let's remind the audience too, Winter Dragon was it was a kind of cobbled together creation by Red Eagle Entertainment, I think they were called, to basically maintain their film licensing rights, and they basically filmed the prologue. It had Billy Zane for some reason.
As Ishmael, and he was very Billy Zane. So there is no pretense for accent. He just came and was his Billy Zane self. So if anytime you see any reference to Billy Zane, that's kind of why. But spoiler, it wasn't as terrible as it could have been. I saw
definitely not.
I saw people that were making comments on that, like the Amazon series was worse than Winter's Dragon, and I'm like
no.
Okay, that's a hot take that maybe is not agreed upon. The thing is that nothing is ever going to be the way that we want, and we can talk, we can still have opinions and wish for changes and talk about things without having to be jerks. Like,
I think I was talking with some friends, not necessarily about Wheel of Time, but about some other properties and adaptations and things like that. And, one of the things I realized was that when and where you become a fan of something really depends on where it intersects with your life and who you were at the time that you encountered it, and how that intersected with what you were going through. And you could encounter the same thing maybe years later and it wouldn't hit you the same way. I remember I started reading The Wheel of Time in late college. It was kind of after a big breakup in my life, and I was also at the cusp of moving away to a city where I didn't know anyone, and working a job where I wondered if I was qualified to do it. And when you're in that state, Rand's journey becomes very compelling, and it's the young man's journey out from his comfort zone and trying to learn the world, and that's where I was, and kind of letting go of an old love and being open to finding new experiences. It resonated powerfully for me in a way that maybe now that I'm settled, it wouldn't hit the same. And, I was, by the time Memory of Light came around, I was a father. I had been married for a few years, and I started looking at like the relationships between fathers and sons and things like that. And that hit me right there where I lived. So it all just kind of is happenstance.
And it's important to remember that everyone has that sort of connection, and it's going to be very different. And so themes that are important to one person are going to be very different to someone else.
Such a big deal. And I think I summed up my thoughts on the show by riffing on one of Land's lines. I will hate the adaptation because it is not the books, and love it if it makes viewers smile. No viewer deserves an unfinished adaptation. The Wheel of Time viewers least of all.
Yes.
That's perfect. I love it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Exactly. Like, I couldn't say it any better. There will always be things that I wish could be different. But they're not. That's okay too, because this is something totally different, and I love that for us.
Yeah, if anything, it's more exciting because I don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Being surprised.
Exactly. Yes, I can speculate And that's one of my favorite things.
But being surprised by the Wheel of Time again is pretty awesome.
Should we talk about some of those surprises maybe? Like, I think one of the big changes, obviously, in the show was that the Dragon Reborn could be a man or a woman. The Dragon Reborn could be one of the 5 people from the 2 rivers. The show committed to making it a mystery, and it did that by putting Moraine at the center, and all of the Emmons Field folks were, I don't think it overstates it to say that Moraine and Lan had the first and second billing in the show. Rafe Judkins said that himself.
Yeah.
And, our younger characters were, in their way, secondary characters to them. Were you surprised? Like, I thought maybe the dragon would be revealed to be someone other than what I had read in the books. Did you ever get that feeling?
No, not even for a second.
No, okay. Yeah.
I liked that we thought it, but there was no way it was going to be anybody other than Rand.
Yeah. I loved that aspect of who is this for specifically for people that haven't read the books, because that was something that was really not disappointing, but it was like, oh, I wonder who the Dragon Reborn will be. It definitely could not be the main character that the point of view is from for the first, X number of chapters. That would be silly. And so the first book it's good. It's a great book, but you don't get depth of character development in the rest of the characters in the way that the future books have. You don't really know who Egwene is other than this love interest, and then the person that Perrin saves, and then they hang out together and do other I can't even think of what Egwene does in the books, but it doesn't matter. Like in the first book, like she's just a character that's there, whereas
she's just bossy.
And so
she's also the one person who's trying to get away from her home, and I think it goes into the weeds to start analyzing the first book and, in light of what you learn of the characters. But I think the seeds are all there, which I really loved. But I only glommed onto that, on subsequent readings.
Right.
So you're right. You're right.
Yeah. And to be fair, Robert Jordan didn't know how many books he was going to get to write. He originally wrote the first one as a single book, and didn't know all of that story, that there's some forgiveness to be given in this book, because he didn't know where it was going to go, which is great, because it went where we went. But the ability for Rafe to see that as a way to have a subplot that runs across the entire season that is more important than it was in the book, because again, the books had no surprise for who it was, but by having it be a surprise in the show and really strengthen the foundation for each of the 5 Two Rivers folk, that sets them up as stronger characters as a whole, as opposed to, oh yeah, that's right, these are the other people that came with the Dragon Reborn.
Well, structurally, you have this mystery, and then you have 8 episodes to basically go through each candidate of who might be the person, and then establish a story for them, which was pretty cool. So you have Nynaeve is this mega powerful kind of hidden treasure. You have Perrin as this haunted man who can talk to wolves. You have Matt as another haunted guy, but he
a different type of haunting.
He basically taps into some sinister stuff. Egwene is the eager pupil, and you have Rand.
He's there.
Yeah, he's there. He's
Rand was also present.
Yes, Rand broke down a door.
Yeah.
And then we get a montage about all of the things that he did that we didn't know about.
which like obviously you look at it from a narrative standpoint and that makes sense. Let's downplay the true person because of the things that he will do in the future, potentially, maybe. And so like I love how well it fooled new viewers.
Rafe Judkins also worked on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which had a big ensemble cast as well. He would go from character to character and he would develop a plot line, and then you'd go to a different character and develop that plot line. And, by the end, everything came together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he really works well with those group things, like being able to find who's important in the show and in this particular scene and be able to manage it in such a way that really no one felt lost. Like, obviously I'd love to see more Loyal, but like it makes sense. He still had his points when he came and did it. And of course I want some more Swan and I want more characters, but the only way that could happen is when we get, fingers crossed, more episodes in the season.
Yeah.
But I love everything was utilized and used very, very strategically and purposefully. And that takes a lot of work and effort and energy. And I think it really was done masterfully. And I'm sure it will continue on throughout the rest of the series.
I mean, and it just shows how the average person doesn't know enough about actually writing a story or sitting down and crafting a story from beginning to end. Yes. Because yes, you do need to think about the pacing. You need to think about the character development and how they relate to each other. And it's not as easy as people think it is.
Yeah. What? It's not?
There's an author named Mary Robinette Kowal.
She's amazing. Yeah, so amazing.
But she has this wonderful, I think it's listed on her Patreon. It's basically a calculus of how many plot lines and sort of as a consequence, how many characters you can have if your word count is X, Y, or Z. She uses it as a rule of thumb for editing where, if you find that you need to cut things, then if you cut a plot line, by how much can you expect to shrink the story or the novel? And, I've got to believe that the same holds for screenwriting, that there's some sort of a science that's been developed for this. And I'm really curious how the Wheel of Time works with that calculus, because with a cast of this size and the number of plot lines that we want, at least just focusing on each character, how many episodes per season does that mean?
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully. Like you would almost need a full movie for each episode, and it would need to be like a full 25 episode arc. It just is so much more than this 8. And the reality of that, it's hard to accept what reality is. I mean, we've seen a lot of examples of what reality in the world can be or not be based on so many different factors, and being able to say, hey, this is what we got. And yes, it's not perfect by any means, but man, is it exciting.
How did you guys feel about Moraine being at the center?
I liked it. Going back to the books, I did not like Moraine. I never liked Moraine. And so I was expecting when she was revealed to be the kind of central character in this, kind of like, ugh, okay. But I loved it. It was fantastic. It made sense. Rosamund Pike did amazing. And it just made the story more cohesive, having a central character that had like her hands in all the dishes.
And by having a character that is the lead character in an ensemble show that knows what the heck is going on, it allows it to direct the story in a way that if you have the naive, farm boy in charge, well, then you can't show all of the really cool things. Like, let's be honest, everyone loves the Aes Sedai. Love to hate them so cool. Or whatnot. Like Aes Sedai, it's great. And being able to have Moraine be the main character means you get to learn more about them, which means you then got the wonderful joy of having that whole section of the Aes Sedai in the middle of the show and be able to go to Tarvalon in the first season and have all of these very important pieces for the future. These are key parts of the world and they don't show up at all in the first book.
Right.
And so it was super smart. I am so thankful for that because I loved the Aes Sedai and I was going to be so sad to only have Moraine be the only Aes Sedai we would see. Having Moraine in charge like she is, but then also having those moments of weakness where you really care that she's hurt. And you get to see the way that other characters interact with her when she is injured and when she's really sick and practically dying. And then at the end too, where she's just like exhausted beyond all compare, and you feel for her because that's the journey that we've just gone on too.
My one quibble with how Moraine was presented in the show, at least in season 1, was I wish we were privy more to exactly what she knew and what she was uncertain about. Like as much as I loved the Private Swan and Moraine scene, I wish they also took time to sort of like compare notes and strategize and say, well, we know this. We suspect this prophecy means this, but it's not this. What does it mean? I compare it to, what if they retold The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings from Gandalf's perspective? And, the films kind of did a little bit of that, especially with The Hobbit. Like, I didn't love the Hobbit adaptation, but something that they did was there was more about the Council of the Wise in The Hobbit. There was this background story that Sauron is in Mirkwood. He's rising. He's coming back to power. We've got to do something about him. This quest that the dwarves are going on, they've got their own reasons, but really my vested interest in it is that Sauron could make an accord with this dragon and together they'd be unstoppable. So we've got to put some things in motion to make sure that doesn't happen. We get a lot more Gandalf points of view. We understand a little bit more of what he's trying to achieve. I wish that happened more with Moraine as well.
And there's, we could have seen more of that. Let's just a little bit, but it's a delicate balance between the humanity and the know-it-all wizard.
You can err on info dumps very easily with a character like Moraine.
Oh yes.
And I think they were pretty deft about it. So when talking about the 3 oaths, we had her explaining the 3 oaths to Egwene and then demonstrating it with the white cloaks. That was really well done. That was really well structured.
Yeah, it was. But in the books, Moraine didn't reveal anything in that first. I mean, so the fact that we get some of that, I think, was fantastic. Rather than her just being, you've got to trust me because I'm an Aes Sedai, and then they all do, which is ridiculous. So I did like that, she did show those moments of weakness and those moments of doubt and those moments of conference with Lan, especially there in episode 4 in the camp. And then Lan's like, you honestly don't think Logain is the dragon? And she did for a minute. She really did think it might have been him.
Asked him questions. She talked with him, which was a great scene.
I loved the pieces that we got to see for each of these really important characters. All of the pre work in showing, Moraine and Lan as, they're the big name cast characters that are put out there, but being able to concentrate on the 5 Two Rivers folks was really special to show who they are in a very quick way, and be able to make you fall in love with them instantly. And with 5 characters, like just 5 individuals of very different personality types, very different everything, and having to make them care for them as they split off. What are they going to do? And you want to know that they're going to be okay. Such a delicate balance, and I love the balance that they did end up having about all of it. It's just a lot.
So Rafe Judkins has gone on record saying that because he has these headliner actors for Moraine and Lan, their plot threads are going to be much more pronounced, even though in the books they tend to recede. Where do you think Moraine's going now, Moraine and Lan?
So Rafe did say in an interview that Moraine has one chapter in The Great Hunt, and he had to make that stretch the whole season. So I think she's going to go visit some Aes Sedai, gain some knowledge, and figure out what the Dark One, quote unquote, did to her source.
That's actually something I thought of also while watching The Lord of the Rings. Something they depicted, but wasn't in the books. Maybe she'll have to do a little bit of traveling, a little bit of talking with other characters, putting the dots together, which would be wonderful because I love seeing her interacting with different characters and then trying to adapt herself to get what she wants out of all of them.
And seeing her mind rolling and seeing it work. It was so interesting just kind of see her changing what she was saying and how she was presenting herself depending on who she was speaking with. And so I'm so excited to see more of that, especially now that, okay, we know who the Dragon Reborn is. That main impetus of her journey is done. And now we just have to try and get him to the last battle.
And I loved how they portrayed Moraine as kind of fraying throughout. Her hair started getting to be in a mess. She was hesitating. You could tell that serenity was gone. She's been through the ringer, and now, of course, with what happened in episode 8 to her, she will have to be relying on a completely different set of strengths. And they did mention, Swan made mention that Moraine is actually nobility. She is a member of a house, a high standing member of a house. She may start to lean on that more. Whatever resources she can get.
Yeah, but at the same time, she also said to the White Cloaks that she's a lady from a fallen house.
Oh, that's true.
So in this show, is her Damage Red house as powerful as it was?
I agree. I think she's going to use everything that she has to make sure, like, everyone can get to the last battle that she trusts, as little trust as she has for people, depending on what is going to happen. But I have no idea what's going to happen with Rand, where he's running off to, and what's going to happen with Nynaeve and Egwene. Are they going to continue on to the White Tower? Who knows? At this point, they've had a real taste of what the One Power can do. It might scare them off. We've got,
that's true.
Matt is at the White Tower, so he's going to do something.
That is the big mystery. That is the big mystery. What's going to happen with Matt? And I know Rafe Judkins has said that he's going to basically pick up on Matt's plot line in book 3, which is good because that's when I started loving Matt.
Right, exactly.
And of course, book readers will know what we're talking about, but show people don't, which is great because again, more surprises, but we're going to keep that, we're going to keep that sealed. But basically Matt's going to have his journey for whatever that might be, and whatever that looks like for his goals as, someone who has been deeply touched by the dark, but then has a lot of family drama too. I think hopefully we'll get to see his sassy side come out.
In the books, Matt was the comic relief character. That's an oversimplification, but
but it's a pretty good. It's a pretty good. He was. I would agree that he was the comedy, and that's not a spoiler necessarily. So, being able to have him be more comedic than wasting away and rotting away thanks to
possessed
a dagger,
by this evil dagger.
Yeah,
right.
I think will be exciting for viewers to see.
Yeah. What about Perrin? What do you think's going on with him?
Well, his journey, his way of the leaf discovery and denial, I think is really hitting him hard. Clearly, since he picked up that axe and saw so much death around him. But I think he feels a responsibility for what Fane took, and that he wasn't, quote unquote, strong enough to stop him. And so I think he's going to take that hunt very, very personally and try and get back the horn, whatever the horn is in that special box. We don't know, but he's going to find it very important to go and get.
I have to admit, in the adaptation, I was most sad about Perrin because of his initial tragedy with Layla. He became a bit of a one-note character. He was brooding throughout. He sort of didn't change in his moods. And one of the big plot lines, of course, in both stories was his relationship with the wolves. But the way it was portrayed in the book is probably not something that adapts well to the screen. It would look hokey, feel like, talking animals out of a cartoon. That's no good. But something was lost in what made Perrin interesting, for me at least, in season 1. And I'm hoping that we regain something of the Perrin was one of my favorite characters. Perrin was the favorite character for me. And I'm hoping he can sort of reassert some of what made him cool.
I'm going to disagree, because I think the show handled him better. It gave him a purpose for the emotions he was feeling, and it drove him forward. And I don't think he brooded the whole time. I think he was contemplating and assessing and seeing if there was a different way to life than what he'd been taught. And that's why the way the leaf appealed to him so much, that he'd never even considered that viewpoint. And then all of a sudden he'd done this horrible thing with the axe and Layla. And then he's presented with this alternative view that's so counter to everything they've learned in the Two Rivers. And he's like, oh, I don't have to be the way everyone thinks I should be. And I think that made him more interesting. And I'm really excited to see how they bring that in season 2.
I also kind of agree. I liked this presentation of him, especially in the last episode, and the fight that he has with himself on whether or not to fight. We talked about, he looked at the axe and he didn't pick it up and kept running after Fane. And then when he saw the death, he's like, okay, now I'm going to try and, do what I can. And even then still, it wasn't quite enough. And so I think that it's going to be a really difficult argument with himself. And I think, he's probably still going to be a big brooding dude. But that's okay. I think it's going to end up working better in his favor and really develop his character in a different way. But I actually really liked his show characteristics. I just need to I do want to just give him a hug though.
Definitely. But I think it's interesting that, in the first episode he picked up the axe and it led to disaster. And then the second time he didn't do anything. There was no violence on his part. Yeah, he picked it up, but he didn't lunge for Fane. He didn't try. And then now it's the lack of violence that led to disaster. And that's going to be the dichotomy for him going forward, is that, well, if I pick it up, it's bad. And if I don't pick it up, it's bad. Where do I go from there?
Which disaster do I choose? And so I think it's going to be a lot more internal in his external journey, I think. And that will be interesting. We know that Loyal is not dead. So I think that is also going to have a part of that conversation. You could really see Perrin and Loyal bonding more in that time, where they were, trying to figure out what to do while everyone was prepping for battle. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see that relationship develop stronger as well, and see what happens with that.
Well, and of course, I'm just thinking, I hope there's some a nice woman who's gonna draw him out a little bit and make him care about something other than his dilemma, his internal dilemma. Give him something external to himself.
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
Good call. Good job. Yes. Good job. I'm proud of you. Well, we've now like, what about Egwene and Nynaeve? We've got the three women who have very different journeys, or the same journey, or what do we think is going to happen there?
I don't know. I have absolutely no idea which direction they're going to go. I hope to the tower.
Yes.
But
I am really hoping the tower, because I think they recognize that things are big, and this is a little bit what maybe this counts for Egwene more than it does Nynaeve, and she's already willing to go to the tower. But training in the one power doesn't seem to there. The way it's been described, especially when Moraine and Rand have been talking, it's like, you don't need training. You just need to hurt enough in order to be effective, and the pattern will take care of it. That maybe that's fine for Rand, but I'm hoping that both Nynaeve and Egwene will conclude that training will do them good and allow them to pursue their goals more effectively if they know what they're doing. So I hope we get the whole training in the White Tower arc. Schools for magic are wonderful.
Those are my favorite. It's my favorite trope. So I want to give me that was my favorite. Honestly, that's my favorite part of Harry Potter. And I was so sad in the last books, spoilers for Harry Potter, I guess, when they barely are in the school at all. I'm like, but what about I want
the school?
Okay.
I mean, we have what was it? The Name of the Wind and Wise Men's Fear is also it's set in a college. Ursula K. Le Guin's Earthsea. We start out with the hero in a school for magic learning. It's a great trope.
It's beautiful, and
I think it deals with learning how to seize your power.
Yes, and it's a great way to teach the audience how it works as well. And so I'm excited to see. I'm guessing Moraine will take them back to the tower. Not obviously
she can't go back.
Obviously she can't go back itself, but she can still bring them along and then send them off.
Okay.
And then whatever what will happen there, but I think she's going to take ownership of them again and further in a way
take them to the border and then say, I've sent word to Alana or somebody, and
something like that, or who knows,
actually
maybe
Swan,
someone else,
Swan.
Or somebody else will show up to take them. Who knows? We don't know. And that's what's so exciting. Like I was not so as we were prepping for the show, and I started to do a reread, and then I was like, no, I don't want to do a reread. I want to be able to experience the show how it is and not be obsessed with the changes. But I also thought that a lot of the changes would be so minor that I would know what was going to happen. And it's so exciting that I don't. Like, we don't know what is gonna happen next. Like we have the main themes, which are like we've seen that these main things and main plot points are being hit, but not knowing exactly what's going to come is so exciting to me.
We glossed over Rand. Let's just do it. What's your guess on Rand? Where's he going?
The Aiel Waste.
Okay.
I think he's gonna try and learn more about his mom.
Nice. I think that would be, especially after that cold open with Shael. That's sorry, we're calling her Tigraine right now. Tigraine. That would be a great follow-up. I'm just thinking ahead, and maybe whatever book spoilers, he has dreams leading him to a certain place, and it's a place we've seen in the show already, if from a distance. So I'm wondering if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I think he'll try and go to where his mom is, but also there's a piece of me that wonders if he's just going to get away And so heading to the mountain that he remembers, and just kind of like sitting and trying to stay away from people so he doesn't hurt the people that he loves. He's not going to just sit in a campground for the next 8 seasons. That's not quite how any story would work. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it navigates around and what might happen to get him where he needs to be.
Well, I'm definitely wondering. We've seen that Men Who Channel have their phantom friends who may or may not be their past lives. But I wonder if now that we've seen Luz Theron Telamon, if we're going to see him again as sort of a ghost, and whether that dialogue is going to propel things, and whether Rand will actually start learning more of the real lore of the world. And that might be moving him forward in some way, where Luz Theron is trying to correct the mistakes of his past, but maybe not.
And that's interesting on that note, just real quick, that Logain's past self, quote unquote, was these shadowy figures covered with black. Yeah. But when Rand saw Luz Theron, it was like not even close to that same image.
Yeah.
And even the opening unnamed male channeler, his companion, who wasn't really there, looked like a normal.
You're right. He wasn't shadowy.
Yeah.
I would love to see the actor who played Luz Theron in episode 8 just kind of be hanging around as a ghost. Talking.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, because like you said, we've seen 2 different manifestations of the madness, and who knows, Rand might get a third.
True that.
Or some variation of what Matt had. I don't know about you, but I know everyone I've talked to who has watched the show is really excited for season 2, whether they are book readers or not. Yes. And so I can't wait. Well, except I have to wait for whoever, hopefully this winter, but it might be longer than that. I don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows.
Well, I know that one of the friends of Dragonmount did a nice little video, Rebecca pattern reading, on Twitter, of the cast that has been confirmed. And that's a lot of fun, because that gives us all sorts of fodder for speculation. There was even a little element there that our wolf brother mentor Elias is hired to sniff out the horn, to follow the horn. So Perrin might actually get his mentorship after all, which would make me very happy. So before we move to the book conversation, I'd love to talk about a couple of things that Rafe Judkins was doing intentionally to kind of adapt the story. And they're both kind of related things. One is the diversity of the cast, the ethnic diversity of the cast, as well as the sexuality of the cast. And then related to that is gender essentialism. The Wheel of Time is a very gender essentialist story. The cosmology says that the universe is divided into a male and a female energy. And these energies are separate, they're different, they push against each other, and that pushing against each other creates the dynamic that powers the wheel. That's this push-pull that allows the pattern to be spun.
The balance.
Yes. That's, I think modern audiences are more cognizant of the idea that gender is fluid, gender is not binary, gender is not an essential attribute of the soul. And so for a cosmology that is built on this dual, it's not as palatable to modern audiences. And I think Rafe addressed it a little bit by saying that people can be reborn as to either gender. And we really, except for the old tongue conversation, I don't think we heard the terms Saidin and Saidar, which are the male and the female halves of the one power. And Moraine in the last episode didn't say that she couldn't teach Rand because her brand of the power is different than his brand of the power. She said, "You're going to go mad." So how do you feel about how Rafe addressed gender essentialism or gender in general?
I think they're just going to try to make the power one power instead of it being different. And maybe that's something in the Age of Legends. They call it something different based on perceived gender, but it's not really something different.
Like maybe it's not locked into the soul, so that if the Dragon Reborn was born as a woman, she would still be able to channel the female half of the power, as opposed to going mad at the male half, quotes around that, of course. And I think there's such a sense of awareness, and Rafe has had to balance so many different layers into this in order to tell a story that's, fairly faithful to the books. Don't come at me, book cloaks, but also with an understanding that, hey, this isn't the 90s anymore. The societal understanding of what gender is different, and it's okay. And more than okay, like let's expand this story a little bit more. I think it'll be really interesting to see how it adjusts in the future and what else it brings, because in that flashback in episode 8, we saw, the Tamrilan and Luz there and Telamon talk to each other and talk about the balance and talk about kind of like, both sides are needed. And so it'll be really interesting to see if there's another piece of it that's brought in, maybe someone that presents physically, or like that was born as a male that can channel the quote unquote female side of the power, or somebody that can do both.
Well, kind of like to bring in Star Wars, you have the Sith and you have the Jedi, and spoilers for whatever that last movie was called. Rey kind of does both. Yeah. Like she gets the power of the Sith and the power of the Jedi, and together she's more powerful. Yeah. So I could see them kind of going that direction.
I could totally see that happen. I think that's really interesting. And especially when layered on top of the ethnic diversity that's placed in here. The cultures are already like significantly different, even just the few that we've seen. We've seen all of the different Aes Sedai are wearing different clothing and have different hairstyles and hair looks and facial features, and like each of them seem very individual. And then especially when compared with the ethnic diversity that's seen in the Two Rivers, and how, oh my goodness, they're not all white.
Like, you know what? To me, that seemed more true to the reality that Robert Jordan established, because this is a post-apocalyptic world where all of humanity had come to some apex where they were all together. Presumably it was a utopia, presumably it was all ethnic types mixing, and then there was the breaking, and then there's the scattering of humanity. But humanity doesn't scatter then along ethnic lines. It scatters along, where you are and what you do and what your kinship ties are. So I loved the fact that it was multi-ethnic, because this shows that we're not talking about, where different groups of people evolved, from an evolutionary standpoint. We're talking about the scattering of a global society.
Yeah.
So multicultural or multi-ethnic representation seems perfectly in line with that concept.
Yes, very much so.
And then the diversity in that cultures that are placed with it too. We saw, a little piece of it from Swan when she was a baby, and like the tattoos and the pieces that are involved in that, and how that's developed into that entire being, and not just, oh, well, they are, this color skin is darker, so they're from the South, or whatever, like specific mental adjustments you may like try to apply to something because it's Earth, and being able to say, well, this is the culture, this is
the exceptions, of course, being the Aiel.
Right.
Those are all redheads.
Well, I don't know.
But
I'm not sure about that. But I think it's interesting that when Thom says you're from the Two Rivers to Matt, he doesn't mention skin or hair or anything. He's like, it's your clothes, your accent, and your asinine attitude.
Yeah. And the reliance of how the culture imprints on the human as opposed to the color of their skin or, the color of their hair. I think that is really strong in the character development.
You still have national traits and national cultures. It's just not built around an ethnic look. Which is cool. And which is completely in the world building here. So I did like, and beyond that too, I think this is something that Rafe did focus on. The books did have homosexuality, bisexuality, polyamory. That was all there. It was understated though.
Yeah, it wasn't blatant, which means clearly it was missed. Like, this is fake that Rafe created. And it's like, well, really? Did we read the same books?
I mean, definitely it was all there. Rafe drew it forward. And I think this is, one of those things about representation and why it's winning fans of different demographics that are like saying, we haven't seen this positively represented in fantasy
ever.
And now we're seeing it open, and we have manly fighter characters that are joking, well, I guess I gotta figure out how to be with two men now as well as a woman,
and also oh, we're not together, I could do better than that, not offended that, oh my gosh, how dare you think I'm gay, so much as no, my taste is different,
like my taste is better.
Totally post bigotry world.
And I think that's a great way to kind of like lay out, hey, this is how the world could be. Like we said, because that was a priority, that was an important purpose for him. It meant that other pieces had to not necessarily take a back seat, but you have to make adjustments. Everything can't be the top priority. That's not how priorities work. By having to pick, obviously other pieces are not going to be as important. And as heartbreaking as that is, that's the truth. And I think that a lot of times people not necessarily, honestly, I think that's why a lot of people got mad. Because this was not a conversation that they wanted to have. And this is not the things that they saw in the books. And so it's much easier to just get angry than to look at yourself and think of why.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's what I always say about Nynaeve. Like, Nynaeve is angry because she's scared.
Yes.
Doesn't want to face that things are different. Doesn't want to face that, oh, my way of thinking might be wrong. Like, oh, I don't have to be the center of attention and in charge of everything and bully everyone to get my way.
Yeah. And other people might know more or be a better fit to be in charge right now.
Yeah.
And she was fighting all of her life in Emmons Field just to prove that she deserved the status that she had, that she'd earned. And so, when you're one of those people who has had to prove yourself all your life, there's a little bit of that edge that you acquire, but God, we'll talk about it in the books, but her journey is just so wonderful.
Well, with that, stick around if you've read the books or don't mind book spoilers. But if not, I think we're going to say that this is not the ending, but it is an ending. As always, thank you for joining us. You make sure to check out all of the other content on the website, on our social media page, on our YouTube channel. We have so many exciting things coming in the future as we have taken our breathers from the end of the season 1 coming out. We're ready to jump back on the train. We have so many amazing things planned in the future, hopefully some more interviews as well. And also join our Patreon at patreon.com/Dragonmount. There you will see uploads of their full conversations, which trimmed down fun things that might have been missed in the final cut. Reach out and let us know your favorite parts about season 1, what you're hoping for in season 2. And I'd love to know more from people that are not book readers, that are show watchers, that have been listening to the podcast. I got some incredible feedback from some great friends that have listened to the show. And then, of course, we're very good and turned off the podcast before we talk about the books. And they were really appreciative of, kind of the conversations that we've had. So we would love to hear more from you. And make sure that we're balancing, because we are trying to keep, it as spoiler free as possible. So let us know if we're hitting the mark or missing the mark. We don't know what we don't know. So let us know, reach out to us. You can find us. Dragonmount.com is the number one location to reach out to all of the things. And with that, I think we are ready to talk about the books and what the future may bring.
Hooray.
Okay, Rajiv, since you have so much to say.
Oh my God, where to even start? So, I think one of the points of discussion on the internet, and one of the things that I've internalized from looking at this, is that this is an adaptation of the series, not the individual volumes of the books.
Yes.
And I think we've heard enough to conclude that the next season 2, is going to be not only book 2, The Great Hunt, but probably also book 3, The Dragon Reborn. And who knows if we go into the Waste, then we'll see a lot of Shadow Rising, which is a lot of ground to cover.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So I guess, when I was reading the books, the first 3 or 4 books were really coming of age, discovering the world and figuring out who you are. I think we've accelerated that in the show. So
yes,
if we jump forward to who the essential characters, who they are as characters getting ready for the last battle, what do you think the work is that we need to do? What do you think we need to cover for our, let's say, the Emmons Field folk?
Yeah, I think
so much can be cut.
So much can be cut.
So much.
I think we have a lot of Perrin fighting the Horn and his growth, maybe even Fael in this part of the journey by himself, not in the whole group. I think we're going to see Rand, dealing with himself and maybe the Aiel then. We're going to see, I'm pretty sure we'll see, Nynaeve and Egwene meet Elaine, and probably Min's going to show back up at the tower too. And all of that Aes Sedai, White Tower drama is going to start developing, and who's going to happen there.
Oh, I hope so.
Including more of
amazing.
The Black Aja. I think we're going to see that to tie into the Seanchan.
That is the thing I hope for the most, because I think that was the piece that's missing.
Yes.
For show watchers who haven't read the books, is why the hell is Moraine being so secretive? I mean, if it was just a matter of being afraid of the Reds gentling the Dragon Reborn if he was male, which it turned out to be male, then surely the Amyrlin is strong enough to be able to put the kibosh on that and say, this is under my protection. Here's my plan. Here's what we're going to do to prepare the dragon for the last battle. But there's a reason. There's a reason that we know from New Spring, and then, as is revealed through the second and third books, is that the White Tower is not safe.
Yeah.
It has enemies infiltrated, embedded inside, and they're in secret.
Yeah. And I think we've seen hints of that with the secrecy of Swan and Moraine, and we've seen the pieces of it, that to the unknown eye, having, the connections between like the arguments between the Aes Sedai is important. But we don't know why. And I think a little bit about, who Leandrin is seeing in the North Harbor. Ooh, it's not a lover. Or it might be, but probably not. Like,
I mean, do we think it's Padan Fain? I think that's the only way he got the dagger.
Yeah, I think that's,
and the trefoil leaf to get through the waves.
Although that wasn't shown in the show, even though we have stills of it.
Yes, but we've got the. I mean, it was shown in the extras pieces of it. But I think that was definitely Fain, and I think that Leandrin knows something sneaky was going on and was able to say, "Hey, here, I can't go after that because I have to stay and break over the White Tower to win whatever. But here you go, take this, be gone with you." I think Leandrin is going to play the role of Alviarin. Alviarin, not
Alviarin,
not Aleda, as so many people think.
Makes sense.
I don't know.
Are we going to get an Aleda?
I think so. Yes, I think she's going to come with Elaine and Galad and Gawain.
I love Aleda. I really.
I love to hate her.
I love to hate her, but
she's very much Umbridge for me. In that, is she really bad at what she's supposed to be doing? Yeah. But also manages to make so many people angry.
Well, and okay, I won't go into personal politics, but a head of state that is so blusteringly egotistic and completely wrapped up in inflating her own stature versus doing what's best and kind of misses the details.
You putting connections with her?
Am I don't know, but I think it's a topical thing. Maybe. I think it's worth I think it's worth exploring, where you can have a character who isn't explicitly Black Aja, but is so bad in every other way that they might as well be.
Yeah. And I think that right there is why I don't think that Aleda and Leandrin are going to be combined. I think we need even more so now, with real life, history in place, having I'm not going to say she was a dumb character, but she wasn't highly intelligent.
She was blinded by her own personal
ego.
Yeah.
And I think having her come with Elaine and, the whole city of Andor and that sort of thing, I think is important to why she was doing what she chose to do. Because of her foretelling, for profit.
Right. It was the foretelling that boosted her ego, and she thought it was going to be united under her.
Yes. And
I can't even remember what the foretelling said, but she assumed it was going to be her.
It's
Oh, yes. That was the one that Alviarin did hear, where she's like, the White Tower is going to be stronger under the Amarlin and blah, blah, blah. And it was right after Egwene was sworn in.
Right. And the other one, the fate of the world will rest in the, under the Lion of Andor, the last remain.
Right. Which of course was Tigraine.
And hence from there becomes Rand. And so
so she just completely misunderstands everything.
Because she looks at it from her central life of oh, I know exactly what's going on.
It's me. I'm the savior.
I'm in charge. Yeah. And so I think that's a really important character to add things in. I'm hopeful that Leandrin will stick around because I love Kate so much. She's so good.
Yeah, she's amazing.
So flipping good. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm excited. And I'm excited to see what Alana does in the future too.
And there's a rumored casting about Vera, and I hope she makes an appearance. She's one of my favorite.
Ooh, I haven't seen that.
Secondary.
Yeah,
characters.
one of the announcements when Elaine was announced. Okay, Natasha O'Keefe and Mira Sayal were two unnamed characters that were cast. Or
people are speculating Mira Sayal, I think, as Viren.
Yes, and O'Keefe as Eleda.
As Eleda, although I think she'd make a great Lanfear.
I think she could be Lanfear. I think she'll be Eleda. Because I don't see them like announcing the Forsaken.
Yeah.
So
what do you think about that? Are we going to see more Forsaken now? We've only seen Ishamael.
Yeah. I think we're going to see more. We're not going to see all 13.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that bet.
Laying down on that one. Leaning
yep.
hardcore on that one. But I think we'll start to see them sprinkling in. I think Lanfear will probably come in. And I think probably Asmodean. It would be really interesting to see if Asmodean's story is a little bit different.
I would love it to be different. And that's so interesting because we did talk before about how Maureen's like, I can't teach you because you're going to go insane. And I think she just doesn't understand the mechanics of it. Like she has no idea because she's never dealt with a man that can channel. She's not Green Aja or Red Aja. She doesn't know. And then so Rain's going to realize, oh shoot, a woman can't teach me. And he's going to reach out to somebody quicker, I think. And I really hope Asmodean can get like a redemption arc. Yeah. He's my favorite.
I would love to see him turn into more of a like a future positive Snape feature.
Like, oh, you can be redeemed. Like make mistakes and come back.
Yeah. Like
I still want him murdered. So
I absolutely want him murdered.
Who killed Asmodean?
Well, he could still be murdered. But he could be murdered after he comes back to the light.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that actually would be completely in keeping with the film, tweaking the emotional beats of it. So, right when we think, oh, here's a character that could be a great ally, then you can kill him off.
Yes.
Right.
But I'm really wondering. It almost feels like even if we truncated the number of Forsaken, they would crowd out an 8-episode season. I think we could see Semirog appear if we start to see Shan show up, but sort of in the background, not doing anything.
I think I could see having whoever the one in the tower is, Morgan.
No, that was
Masana.
Yeah, thank you. Having pieces of that, like I could see background droppings of the Forsaken being added. Because they're playing the long game. For
Nynaeve to just pass by Masana,
oh my gosh,
and maybe just like glance at each other and
just like who you don't know. There's so many little sprinkles that could be added, especially because we know that Rafe is playing the long game, and this is absolutely something that he would do, and I would love it. So please let that happen.
I'd love for one of the cold opens to be the Forsaken Tea Party.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
There were so many. I'm like,
that would be amazing.
I'm like dreaming of the cold opens, like more than the actual episodes.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking,
I know.
What can you show now? What can you do here?
It's so funny because like the prologues were always really, really special to read because we would get them released as an ebook beforehand, and you knew that they didn't really have anything to do with the story necessarily, but you got that little sprinkle of excitement for what was coming. And so I love how hard they've leaned into the cold opens being kind of like those prologues. It's so much fun. It's so much fun, and I love it.
I'm a big fan. I wrote a little article on, actually my first article on Dragonmount was about prologues and epilogues, and I'm a sucker for them in the fantasy genre. And this just replicated that experience for me.
It's beautiful. So with that, we're going to say thank you again for listening. Let us know what you think and what your thoughts are. And we are here to listen to them as long as they are said respectfully, because no book cloaks, please be nice to yourselves and each other. And with that, I'm Kathy.
I'm Rajiv.
And I'm Maureen.
Have a great day.